Arlington County Board of Equalization hearings. We have 7 cases on the agenda this morning. The first case is RPC 15039-016. The property is located at 1610 Kirkwood Road. And we have Mr. Lars Liebelier here to speak on behalf of the owner. Mr. Liebelier, you can take 8 minutes and tell us about this property, sir.
Wonderful. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I assume you've read the materials that we had submitted that included a summary of the property and an identification of some potential comps. I'm not a real estate professional, so I really can't speak to the comps issue, but I can certainly tell you about this property, which is quite unique. We noticed the property when it came on the multiple listing service. There's a very well-known real estate professional by the name of David Cabo who has listed it. You probably have seen his signs everywhere. He's a very effective marketing individual. I believe the property came up for list sometime mid-September of 2021. We drove by it, and one time my wife and we looked at it. It looks like a little sort of bungalow, and it looked cute, and we sort of discounted it because of its size. But David Cabo had an open house. I think it was in late September. We did go to it, and it's a very cute house, and we became interested in it. During the time of the open house, we did see at least 3 or 4 other people come in. A couple of them clearly were families, and then there were 2 people who was easy to identify were definitely contractor representatives of some sort. And I'm sure, as you're all aware, this is the type of a property that somebody as a builder would immediately come in and say, okay, this thing, is it a tear down? Because it's pretty small. Is it a tear down? Can we use this lot to build one of the mammoth things that we build, such as the one next door? 2 of the people, walk very efficiently around the outside of the property. They weren't interested in any of the details of the inside of the property, and quickly left with, I don't even think they spoke to David Cabo at all. And I think that's the point I want to make here. It's probably not evident from some of the things that we submitted to you, is that the way the property is set up, it's really tucked in right behind the Arlington Science Focus School. There's an elevated walkway that runs up the side of it. And the elevation of the property, I think, is the one thing that really hasn't shown up in the evaluation of this value. It is like an Andean mountain. If you were going to do an herb garden, you would have to have some landscaping to get any flat area in the back at all. It looks pretty, but unless you literally cannot use the backyard at all because it is so steep and so graded. That's why there's a deck on the back. That's really the only outdoor usable space. Honestly, I sort of jokingly to other people, you couldn't play cornhole in the backyard because it is so steep and graded. So I think that when you're evaluating something and saying, okay, it's, the land is a significant or, component in the value, that really is, reduces the value on it. I think that builders who were trying to make a decision about whether to purchase this property and buy it, in my estimation, rejected it because there's so much excavation you would have to do to try to build something into the hill, and then there would be no land yard at all. So I think that's a point to emphasize that doesn't really show up on the papers that you have before you. Second of all, and somewhat related to that, is I think the appraiser in his materials had mentioned that the walkway that comes up from Kirk would go up to the school. is no different really than a sidewalk on a corner lot. It is different because of the elevation. That is not just a walkway, it is a steep stairway that probably has at least 30 or more steps. So by the time you get midway up the stairway, the angle upon which you look down into the property in the back deck is extremely elevated. There's no amount of fencing or protective screening that you could apply to the property that would actually give you any privacy in the backyard or the back deck at all. So, frankly, we're pretty social. We enjoy being out there and saying hi to the kids as they walk by, but that's really not for everybody. And if you wanted any privacy at all, this isn't the backyard property that's your dream property. I think that should be taken into serious consideration on value as well. Final point, I think we just to emphasize again, to our knowledge, there were several bidders. We were instructed as we put together an offer on it that there were going to be multiple bidders, and they were going to be opened on a particular day. I think it was the Tuesday, sometime in October, or early October, and in fact there were multiple bids. So it was a completely arm's length transaction. We had no prior relationship with David Cabo. We had no prior relationship with the owners of this property, so there was nothing that placed us in any sort of a preferred position to receive this for less than fair market value. It was publicly advertised, and a lot of people came by to look at it. Nonetheless, our 830 offer was the one that was the fair market value. I don't, think that there's any other way to evaluate it when you have an open market. Everybody can see the property. It's easy to see the whole thing. There's nothing hidden. And our bid of 830 was the one that won it. I think that's the fair market value on it. There weren't any concessions or unique aspects to the contract that would have changed that value. There weren't any closing costs, transfers back and forth. The 830 was what it was. And I think that the evidence indicates that is what that assessment should be. Happy to answer any questions that you have on that, and thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Andrew King for the county, please.
Good morning, board. This is a 1.5-story single family home, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, no basement. We have it as 1,224 square feet above ground square footage. The property is on Kirkwood Road, so it does receive a negative 5% adjustment on the land and the improvement. The subject property's neighborhood increased 12.9% from sales that occurred during the analysis period. The subject property sale price was at the end of the year, so it'll be included in the 2023 analysis. But the subject's quality of average plus and the effective age of 1990, they appear in line with the neighborhood and with the condition of the property. There have been some updates to it, but it's still a smaller house, so we kept it at average plus for the quality. The department looked at this case from several ways. As Mr. Lieber brought up, the issue of the path adjacent to the property impacting privacy. Again, it's hard to just differentiate some of these privacy concerns from what would be a corner lot where you could look into the backyard, or other similarly situated sites that had visibility into the back or side yards. We usually don't see a lot of evidence for these impacting values. Likewise, the location near the school. We looked at properties adjacent to nearby Washington Lee High School. That has much higher traffic and activity, and we didn't see any indications of needing adjustments on those properties on those recent sales. This is a small neighborhood, probably one of the smallest single-family neighborhoods, so there's only 120 parcels, but there were some land sales over the past few years. They indicate higher values than even the total sales price of the property, so we saw land sales of $900,000, $1 million, and then about $860,000. We also looked at the lot size. It is below the necessary zoning requirements for the neighborhood. So it's at 5,002 square feet compared to R6, which would require 6,000 square feet. However, we also did look at nearby neighborhood 506051, which has the same zoning requirements, and we still saw below 6,000 square feet land sales that sold in excess of $1 million. We do acknowledge the low sales price for the appellant's property. It's just one data point. We have other data points that pull us, above that valuation. But so for those reasons we laid out, the county recommends a confirmation of the 2022 assessment at 909,100. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? And Greg, I can't see you, so if you have a question, you have to chime in.
I do actually.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, to the appellant. I mean, when I see that property, I've walked by it many times, and the one thing that always struck me is kind of like that basement's got to be flooded. Just looking at the grade, the way everything kind of, I mean, it comes down sharp right under the deck and right into the basement. And so I'm just wondering, from the open house and the walkthrough, was there evidence of anything like that? Was there any discussion that there's going to be flooding, it needs a new sump pump or anything like that, or you think that might be concern from some of the other buyers?
Right. Well, I mean, I think you're correct, and I'm glad that you took a look at it. It is a significant retaining wall that sort of comes up, and then there's a space on the retaining wall that's clearly carved out, and then it gives you about 6 or 8 feet before the actual house starts. So, I mean, that whole lower level is really below grade, even though it's part of the first part of the house. I did crawl around under that basement. It's not a basement, it's a crawl space, and so you can just barely crawl under there.
Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I'm not staying up at night about it, but I am concerned about it. Just a normal observation, as you say, all that comes right down onto the back area right there. At this point, we haven't owned it long enough to know whether there's going to be significant flooding, but I think that it is a concern. There certainly has been some work that has been done in that crawl space with a permeable membrane of some sort. So it indicates that it has at some point been a prior issue. Whether the work that they've done has resolved it entirely, I have no idea.
Okay.
But thank you for raising that issue. I think it is a concern. It has not reared its ugly head at this point, as far as we know.
Okay, other questions from board members? No? No. Okay, Mr. King, if you would take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. So we are acknowledging the sales price that the appellants paid for the property. It will be included in our 2023 sales analysis for the neighborhood, hopefully bring some of those values down next year. But we have a lot of other data points, including land sales and other properties that sold in the neighborhood that we think bring the value up above what the sales price was. So again, we recommend the confirmation at 909,100. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Liebler, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Right. Thanks for the consideration on it. It is a cute little house and we love it, but it's very unique. And I just think the fact that all the builders who are tearing down little bungalow houses like this and building something that's a $2 million house, the fact that they walked on this one is a pretty significant indication that that the purchase price is the actual value. There's just no other indications from the way the property was marketed. It was available for a period of time. Everybody saw it, and a lot of people were interested in it. That when you had a competitive bidding situation, we had an escalation clause in it too. So, whoever bid in there, it wasn't as though they chose us because we're nice people. We had an escalation clause in the contract that said we'll pay $5,000 more than whatever the other highest bid is. So I think it's a really fair indication of what the true value is. Thanks very much for your consideration.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board members. What's everybody think? Mr. Matzkin.
I was completely on board with the department's analysis all the way through. Clearly, the overwhelming value of this property is in the land. The land's that neighborhood's doing, or that region of the county is doing very, very well. Land prices are going up. Developers are looking for tear downs, everything that's also consistent with what the appellant discussed. So it all seemed completely reasonable to me until I thought about the buildability of this particular lot. Now, the department talked about other lots, similar size, disadvantaged zoning like this one, you know, under 6,000 square feet in an R6 zoning parcel. But I don't know if they weren't as buildable, but this one slopes up in the front, slopes down in the back. I don't want to get into the privacy issues. That's different. And I'm not sure that it should, the land in this case shouldn't be decreased by another 5%. Now, I forget the term, but you know, nuisance charge, lack of buildability charge. In this one case, this is the one that's in front of us, so this one we should pay attention to. So I throw that out and reduce it for an additional 5%, the land value only.
Okay, other comments? Mr. Penaranda.
Yes, good morning. One of the things that we have to, and we've always considered in the past also, is that, you know, we really can't start thinking on what may be done with the property as far as buildability. You know, we can't really assess or put a value on whether it's going to be torn down, built up again, or added. You know, we have to assess it based on what it is now. And like we know, the burden of proof is on the owners, and I don't think they provided enough information, in my opinion, to be able to make a change. I think the comparables that they provided are just way off. You know, it's a totally different area. I don't think it compares to this neighborhood. And as far as the issue of the water that Greg brought up, I don't see anything in the listing or even from the appellant that was brought up, you know, being a consideration. I looked at all the pictures. It doesn't seem like anything was of a concern, even under the, you know, the pictures under the deck. You know, the compressor for the air is there. And I think if there was any water issues, maybe it would have been raised up a little bit. So I'm not really inclined to make any adjustments or changes based on that. So based on all that, I'm fine with the assessment the way it is.
Okay, I agree with Mr. Metzgen, and I agree with some of the things that Mr. Penaranda said. You know, the only thing I'm struggling is this was an open market sale. There was multiple bids. You know, I think the purchase price in November is a relevant point here, especially when I hear the county say, well, this will be used next year and probably will lower the values, which, you know, maybe the 12% increase for the neighborhood was high for this year based on what we know. But I think the 830 is a pretty good piece of information to have. And I think it does warrant some consideration, but we'll see what the other folks say.
Can you see me, Mary? No?
No, go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Oh, yeah, I have my hand up, but I agree with that. I don't really see the harm in going to the sale price on this thing, and it's a 5% increase from last year or from the prior year. The assessment's still going up. Take another look at everything in a year, and I don't see the harm in reducing it here, especially when these are unique. When you get into the smaller houses, it's not a typical, you know, there's not as wide a market for this type of house. And each one's a little bit unique with the privacy, with the landscaping, with the layout and the efficiency. When you're in a small house, it's really important how it's laid out and how it feels to the sale price. And that can affect the price by $100,000 easily once you get into that size range. So I would support reduction.
Okay, Mr. Yates.
Yeah, I was looking at the no basement. I'm looking at, I think the comps the county came up with, they seem to look okay. It's a bit of a challenge because they're not quite truly compatible. It just, there was a lot on the market, and you could buy a house And I think they got a good price. I think it probably needs some things done to it too. I think they got a good price. I think the price is reasonable, and I agree with the idea of bringing it back to the purchase price. It is still an increase, which is legitimate. I mean, the market was still going up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a tough one. I don't think is it developable for another house? I don't think that's as strong of an argument, because they're assessing this house and this
Right.
as it is. So
Great.
I'm fine with the 830.
Okay, Mr. Matzkin, you had a final comment?
Yes, excuse me, two things. One, thank you, Jose, for reminding me that we're assessing this house here as it is and not its potential for anything else in the future. Early in the season, and I'm back on track. Second, I never, ever, and been on record many times, not taking one data point as a trend ever, particularly when we have some pretty good comps. They're not great, but it's the best we can do. They're smaller houses, they're not new, they're in the same neighborhood, and they're assessed a good bit more than this one. I would not, therefore, vote for bringing it back to the sales price. I would like to shave some off, but Mr. Penaranda has disabused me of that, so I'm back on his side of full assessment.
Okay. All right. That being said, I'm going to move to reduce the assessment to the sales price of $830,000. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion and a second by Mr. Hoffman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. It is 3-2. The assessment is reduced to the sales price of $830,000 for this year, and then we'll see what happens next year. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. King.
Hey, thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Okay, next on the agenda is RPC 14055-002, property located at 835 North Buchanan Street. Do we have Hendrik Van Stralen on?
Mary, this is Rick. If I could jump in, is that adjustment going to be on the land? Where are you applying this adjustment? What are you doing? That's all I want to say.
I don't think the land can go down any much more.
I just wanted the math on how you're doing it. Yeah.
Rick's asking about the last case that we just decided, right?
No, I understand what he's asking. Rick, let me do some math and I'll get back with you at the end. I understand that. I don't know what the percentage went up, and I don't have it up on my screen, so
Okay, that's perfect.
I'll get back to you on that.
Just want for Rosa and for the notes, how we should handle the process.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, do we have Mr. Van Stralen? No, he's listed as absentee. All right, Mr. Mills for the county. You have 8 minutes to tell us about this property, sir.
Okay, good morning, board. For this case, we have 835 North Buchanan Street, RPC 14055-002. It's a 2-story brick house, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. The year built is 1939. The effective age is 1970. We have the quality set at average plus. The above ground finished is at 950 square feet, and the basement finish is 225 square feet, located in neighborhood 50, 40, 47. The appellant feels that this property is assessed at more than market value. The 2022 assessment for this property was $809,100. The homeowner believes his assessment should be $750,000. On January 1st, 2020, the subject property was assessed by the county for $686,100 and had an EA of 1939, 0 square feet of finished basement space and no bath. The home has a built year of 1939, so the county recorded the home in the original condition prior to the sale. On November 19th, 2020, the home was listed publicly for $750,000. Only after 4 days, the home was put under contract for $765,500. On 12/8/2020, the sale was finalized and went to closing. On December the 30th, 2020, the sale was picked up and verified by the county. From the listing, it was seen that the home had updates to the kitchen, bathroom, basement, HVAC, and windows since it was originally built. During the sales verification inspection, 31 years were added to the EA to actualize these updates to the home to the current EA of 1970. less than a month after the home was sold based on the updates made during the sales verification and the changes to the neighborhood for the 2020 sales analysis. The home was assessed by the county for $750,900 for the year 2021. In 2022, the land analysis for Trend Area 5 showed the need for an increase of $65,000 to the base land value of neighborhood 504047 to keep it in line with the surrounding neighborhoods and the land sale values. Due to the property still having a considerable amount of depreciation, 30%, being applied to the improvement value and the location multiplier being lowered 2 points during the 2022 sales analysis, the appellant's property improvement value saw a $2,000 decrease between 2021 and 2022. The average change from 2021 to 2022 for this neighborhood was 9.7%. The appellant's home increased 7.75%, which is less than the average for that neighborhood. And the quality is set at average plus, which is the lowest in the neighborhood. And we have the EA set at 1970, which is over 50 years to reflect the current state of the property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Questions from board members? Mr. Metzger.
Very quickly for the department, I missed the part for that explained the rationale for lowering the improvement value after you had upgraded its effective age. Can you give me that sentence again, please?
Yeah, that was due to the depreciation being applied. It was a 30% depreciation. So for 2022, the improvement value saw a $2,000 decrease.
This is Andrew King. The change, it had gone up in 2020. It had been part of an earlier year update. So the EA was changed in 2020. So then the 2021 value was still the same for the cost to rebuild, and then it went down for depreciation in 2022.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Hoffman?
No.
Okay, Mr. Mills, if you take a minute to tell us anything else about the property, sir.
Yeah, I believe that the homeowner may have gotten a good deal on this property when he bought it in 2020. I think that the comps that we've provided support the case to confirm the assessment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, it's just among the board members. What's everybody think? Mr. Hoffman?
I think it's a good appraisal. I mean, that's it was bought a year and a half ago. 765. I think that's easily worth it, north of 800,000 today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Anybody else?
No.
No, Mr. Penaranda?
I agree. I think, the same as the previous case, I think the comparables that they provided are just in different areas. So I wasn't inclined to do anything with it. But one reminder, I think a lot of properties in Arlington had that happen, that, they may have been worth maybe 800, but they were listed for much lower. And they did get a lot of bids, but they didn't even sell at the price that it probably could have sold. So it's not unusual that it happened. I've seen many properties like that, and I bid on some of the properties that, we could have got.
Mm-hmm.
If it was listed high, it probably would have sold. So I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. Well, that being said, all right, I will make a motion to confirm the county at 809-100. Do I have a second? Okay. Motion is second by Mr. Hoffman. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. It's unanimous. The county's confirmed at 809-100. Thank you, Mr. Mills. This was your first case. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, my first case. Thanks, guys.
Okay. I believe we saw Mr. Carvajal. There we go. Okay. Next case on the agenda is RPC 17041-393. The property located at 1011 Arlington Boulevard. Is Mr. Delana?
Yes, he is.
That's what I thought I saw. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Delana, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about your property, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, after some technical difficulties, I'm back. Hello, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard regarding my opinion as to the value of the property, and I'll briefly describe my position on the value here. as it's reflected in the appeal submission, which includes a formal appraisal that was performed in January of 2022. I'm requesting that the board review the adequacy of the methodology used by the Department of Real Estate Assessments in light of this and sort of the other pieces of my submission in determining property value. It's my contention that this mass appraisal process that is standard for the department as a basis for determining fair market value is sort of insufficient here as applied to outlier properties such as River Place, because it compares a wide variety of different properties and averages the differences among them. But this, of course, fails to account for, and it can't account for, significant deviations from the average within the community. And in particular, River Place, as folks on this call, I'm sure know and are aware of, it's a large cooperative community. There's 4 buildings, 1,700 units, so there's a great degree of variation. And this is compounded, of course, by this land lease, which again I assume folks are aware of, but I will just mention again here. So yeah, this ratio methodology assumes similarly situated units, and in the case of my specific unit and my specific building, it fails to account for that uniqueness in 2 ways. And first, I contend that it doesn't account for or standardize these property values by price per square foot. The department's noted that it doesn't consider price per square foot as a factor when determining these fair and equitable values of the properties. And second, unlike other residential properties in Arlington, as mentioned, River Place is subject to a land lease reversion that will expire in 2052. So, this 2052 land reversion has led to an increasing number of cash-only transactions, which has driven purchase prices down and created, and the 30-year mortgage bubble is going to burst, so to speak, next year, driving away any traditional financing options. So that's sort of like that's sort of the building wide. So I'll focus right now again on my unit. It was purchased at an arm's length transaction in 2018. And in 2022, it was assessed at $257,600 or $369 per square foot. And this outlier price per square foot figure was supported with comps, and these comps had price per square foot values that fell below $369. And I, in fact, submitted 9 other comps from sales in River Place, and those fell below that $369 mark as well. And, which is consistent with what I purchased in 2018. I purchased it for $308 per square foot. So then now I'll just take a quick moment to talk about the formal appraisal here, which is included in my submission. It was performed in January, and as you can see, in either appraisal method, actually, I think 2 were used: sales comparison approach and income approach. My unit was appraised lower than the department's assessment. Certainly an income approach is, as the appraiser notes, slightly less appropriate metric here, but at any rate, it is $60,000 lower, and the sales comparison is nearly $17,000 lower than the department's assessment. So I'd like the board to consider that in consideration of changing this assessment. So I'll just conclude here by asking that this uniqueness be captured somehow, both the predicament of the land lease and the diverse characteristics of units like mine that comprise the property. My unit is the only 1-bedroom unit on the top floor with a den that is, according to the appraisal I had performed, mischaracterized as a den. It's more like a tiny nook, and it's sandwiched against the elevator shaft, unlike any other unit in that building. The only trend line for properties like mine should be downward. In a seller's market, buyers shouldn't have the upper hand in negotiations, but at River Place, because of the land lease and cash sales, they do. The department's acknowledged that you have for every high value sale, you can find a low value sale, which suggests that there's a back and forth of comparable sales here. I can find points to support mine, they can find points to support theirs, but it doesn't seem to be useful or insightful. What seems to make sense to me is that this price per square foot comes in as a great equalizer here. And at least accounting for it would offer some sense of equity where there's just this in a volatile submarket like River Place where there's this great variation and disparity. So thank you everyone for your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Carvajal for the county, please.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I first want to start by apologizing for the lack of a comp sheet. I noticed a couple days ago, due to a technical issue, it did not publish in the BOE packet. I generated a new comp sheet that I would like to screen share, if that's all right with everybody. Can you all see that? Okay. So I generated this comp sheet just for your guys to look at. But as you'll see, this neighborhood, the entire analysis, which is provided on page 26 of 73, is a better indicator of market value. I'll just keep this comp sheet up for a little bit. Subject is unit 1112 in the River Place complex. It is one of 10 units that were created in the year 2000 in a former restaurant space that occupied the top floor of the River Place South building. The subject is 697 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, with a den, but like the appellant mentioned, it's not really a den, it's more of a desk nook. The interior of the unit has a renovation level of the early 2000s. Something we've seen over the past couple years at River Place is that financing has become harder. We've seen more cash sales, and we've seen a significant drop in value following the 30-year mark to the land lease expiration. This is evident in the subject's assessment value. When purchased by the homeowner in 2018, the assessed value was $401,000, and today it sits at $257,600. The 2022 analysis confirmed this trend and showed values coming down compared to a small spike in values observed following the start of the pandemic. Overall, this year, all units at River Place saw a reduction in their improvement base value close to 5%. This was across the board for all 1,700 units. There are no other units like the subject in the building due to its unique development in the early 2000s. The closest comparable sale is that of a 716 square foot unit. Of these 716 square foot units, there were 5 that sold in the analysis period, and they ranged in price from $167,000 to $280,000. Level of renovation did not seem to correlate to market value. Because of the large discrepancies in market value and because the values did not correlate the level of renovation or location within the building, we took the conservative approach of sticking near the median of all these sales when it came to our assessments. 2 examples of these are Unit 1030, which is Comp 1, and Unit 219, which is Comp 2. Comp 3 is provided to show what an inferior unit is going for. Just pull this down. So the reason I didn't want to focus too much on the comp sheet is that although we do provide the comp sheet and the comps were provided initially to the appellant on page 27 of 73 in the packet, you really want to look at all the sales that have occurred at River Place, and this can be seen on page 26 of the packet, which shows the neighborhood analysis. And I believe when trying to figure out market value at River Place, all sales really need to be considered. There are so many factors that might influence a seller and buyer at River Place that this is evident by the large range of sale values for similar condition and sized units. Really picking 2 or 3 comps is difficult since some listings mention the land lease and other owners I speak to have no idea about the land lease and don't understand why their real estate investment is depreciating so quickly. Again, this is evident in the wide range of sale prices for similar units at River Place. When trying to determine whether the subject is equitably assessed, remember that the subject is on the uppermost floor and has an interior that was not built in the 1970s, but rather the early 2000s. By looking at comparable sized unit sales and seeing that they ranged from $167,000 to $280,000, and that level of renovation did not correlate to market value in this particular building, the subject's assessed value of $257,600 can be determined to be fair and equitable with the other 1,700 units at River Place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members. I'll start. Mr. Carvajal, can you put that grid back up again? I just wanted to get one thing off of it. Okay, while it's up, I'll ask the question so everybody can see it. Okay, my concern here is when I look at comp number 1, it sold in September 2021. It's slightly larger. It's 1 bedroom. I mean, it's probably the closest thing we've got to the subject property. 1
And
floor,
upper floor.
and it's assessed at $50,000 less. Can you speak to that?
Right. So they comp 1 and comp 2 are the same, what we call the same model or the same floor plan, the 716 square foot floor plan. Those were created when the building was originally built, and their base value is separate. The base value for the improvement is separate from that of the subject, which is slightly smaller, but built in the year 2000. So the base value for the subject is a little higher, and that takes into consideration the age of the unit as well as its location on being on the penthouse level.
Okay, so what was the year that comp 1 was built?
The original year of the building is 1973 or 1972, I believe.
Okay, and then his unit was converted in what year?
In the early 2000s. I don't have an exact number, but it was in the early 2000s. What
So
you'll see
20 years ago.
Correct. What you'll see in comp 1, what you'll see at the majority of units at River Place is, even though they might have been remodeled or updated, the kitchens have or the bathrooms have, the unit still retains some of that original 1973 construction quality that you just can't take out. And the subject is not one of those.
Okay. All right, thank you. Other questions? Mr. Penaranda? Your microphone isn't on, sir.
Sorry about that. Yeah, my question is also to Mr. Carvajal. In the presentation and all the write-up, it indicates that the unit is a little bit larger than the others. Most of the other units are 716 square feet. You noted that this is 697. And the measurements that the appraiser, that the appellant hired, shows that the unit has 799 square feet. So I wanted to see what, are you basing the square footage that you have based on the record that was there, or was there another measurement taken?
Correct. All of our square footages are taken off the plats. For most units, that information was submitted when the builder submitted a condo declaration. They submit a inventory of all the units. They show us number of bedrooms, number of baths, and the square footages. A re-subdivision was done of that former restaurant space in the early 2000s, and when they submitted their re-sub, they submitted a plat that had the floor plan of each of the individual units that they made and included a square footage in that. That's where we got our number from. And we, for the most part, do not change that unless we receive, unless the homeowner gets a plat done themselves, and then they can record that with the clerk's office, and we'll go ahead and update our record.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Metzgen.
I have a question for the department. You said that this building, the south building, but I assume all of them were built 1972. Weren't they built in 1953 with a 99-year ground lease?
Correct, and I believe there was a conversion at some point, but we have the condominium as 1972.
Yeah, but the building, but you said there are certain aspects of the kitchen, for instance, that can't be updated. They're integral to the, the building's going to fall down and fool with it. I mean, they're really 1953 buildings that I'm sure from time to time have been upgraded in a variety of ways. But I mean, that to me, I don't know. All right, I guess I want to go on record. I don't know what to do with that exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Hoffman?
No.
No? Okay, Mr.
No.
Carvajal, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
The department has no other information to submit. I just, River Place is a tough one to to appraise just because of the wide range of sales we see. As noted, if you look in the analysis, we have 5 sales that are of 716 square foot units. The lowest one that sold was for 167,000. And the one right above it sold for 187,000, and that one was fully renovated versus so you got a $20,000 difference between a fully renovated unit and an original condition unit. You have a sale of another unit that was renovated, similar to that one that sold for 187,000, but this one sold for 280,000. So there's a wide range of market value, and the best we can do is sort of take a median of that, and that is how we create our assessments, and that's how we came up with the 257,600. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Delana, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Yes, thanks everybody for your thoughts and for your input. As Mr. Matzkin raised, yeah, the building is from the 1950s, and I'll add that although some of the cosmetic appointments are from the early 2000s, it's still the same plumbing, the same air conditioning, and the same darn leaky roof, at least one year, that from that original 1950s building. So everything in the walls, the pipes, etc. That does have an effective age of however old that building is, or however recent the most recent update was. I'm sure the pipes are not as old as 1950, but just to emphasize, that there is stuff that lurks outside of the drywall that I think certainly adds to the age of the unit, but I'll conclude by reiterating that on the basis of the results of that, the formal assessment, the impending land reversion, in 30 years, and the decline of value of the comparable units, combined with the uniqueness of my unit, I think that the value for 2022 should be closer to the price that was paid in the arm's length transaction in 2018. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board members. What's everybody think? Mr. Penaranda.
I wanted to bring up some numbers also. I know that this is not something that would be taken into consideration for this year as far as assessment purposes from the department, but talking about median numbers that Mr. Carvajal mentioned, there were other sales that are all over the place. There was one sale in May of this year for 210. It was on the 9th floor in building 1021. There was another one in January that sold for 240. And they're all 716 square feet. It's unit 806 and building 1021. And then there was another unit that sold besides the one that they showed that for 280. The last one that was sold for a higher price was in January. It sold for 323. It was unit 630, also in building 1011. So it's in the same tier that one that sold for 280. So like I said, they're all over the place. And I think, looking at all the numbers overall, I think I don't think the assessment is way off or too low or too high. It's really hard to tell. River Place is a place that one of the co-ops that allows the homeowners to pretty much make any change inside. Some co-ops really don't allow much of the changes that are, that can be made, but River Place is a little bit more flexible, I guess, in that. So I'm okay with the assessment the way it is.
Okay, other folks? Mr. Metzkin.
Two quick things. One is living in the penthouse in the top floor, albeit an occasional roof leak, which the owners association always takes care of. It's worth real money in a multifamily without some noisy neighbor dropping stuff at 3 a.m. Second, although his unit's a little bit smaller, 20 square feet smaller than the typical one bedroom, having, I think, a separate space, albeit small, still a separate space, makes it more homey, is also worth money. Lastly, there's no question that the assessment should be going down, in this case, the appellants, over these next 30 years. 7% is a good assessment decrease. If you multiply it by 30, the county would be owing him tax money at the end of the 30 years if you take it to the absurd. So that seems to be a reasonable, in this case, given that prices are all over the place, it seems to be a reasonable decrease.
Okay, Mr. Yates?
Yeah, I tried to look at the issue of square footage and, you know, adjusted for the floor level and things of that nature. And it's, you know, when you throw out, it is hard because the comps that I found going through all this, they do vary. And you throw out a couple outliers, the county's not that far off. You know,
Okay.
but you got to throw out a few of the outliers for square foot price and adjusted for floor level. It's came pretty good.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman?
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right. Somebody like to make a motion then?
I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment at 257,600.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Yates is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. The county is confirmed at the 257,600. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, everyone. George, we have to stop meeting like this.
Good to see you again, Chris.
Good to see you again. All right, take care.
Okay, and I see we have the next appellant online. Okay, the fourth case on the agenda is RPC 17016-049, property located at 1301 North Courthouse Road. And Miss Amelia Sampat is here as the owner, and you have 8 minutes. You can tell us about your property, ma'am.
Hi, excellent. Thank you. My name is Amelia Sampat, and I moved into this property in October of 2020. After living in Washington, D.C. for 2 years, I decided to make Arlington County my home for my first home buyer experience. So thank you to the board for having me, and thank you to the appraiser's office for sending over the BOE analysis packet and the memo. I have a few concerns that I wanted to address. So I have 3 items here. The first one that I wanted to discuss, I do have a concern with the land value for my property increasing drastically. So since 2013, for every single year, the land value was assessed at $25,100. And in 2021, it was assessed at $54,500. When I spoke with the appraiser's office and asked why there was a drastic change, the response that I received was that my unit was being assessed commercially. So my unit, I do have some questions just about that. My unit isn't being rented out or being used for commercial purposes. So I would like some clarity on that. The second thing is I do believe that the overall total assessment value is a bit low. So I see that the land value is increasing, but the building value has decreased. And I do want to point out for my building, there have been significant improvements to the building. So in the spring of 2020, water shutoff valves were completely replaced. So we had an entire valve replacement project. Also in the same year, P5, so level 5 of our parking garage, we had it completely demolished and rebuilt. So I think that speaks to the building value increasing. And overall, my concern here is that the overall value, I don't want to see the overall value decrease because I see that the value of the unit is increasing and the assessment value should reflect that as evidenced by the improvements to the building. And then just taking a step away from this more from a personal note, for me, just being honest, I'm living here in Arlington in a 1-bedroom condo as a single person. I don't plan on living here forever. I do plan on reselling this unit in a few years. And I do believe that the value of this unit is increasing and the assessment value should reflect that. I do live in Arlington. I pay the taxes without as many tax breaks or any tax breaks that I see from other individuals, such as individuals with children that don't go to school, that go to school. And I think that there are tons of 1-bedroom condos for sale in Arlington. And I do see that it's less beneficial for first-time home buyers interested in moving to Arlington County to purchase those one-bedroom condos in comparison to purchasing in DC, for example. And I think that can affect Arlington County overall. So I would like to see the outcome of that. I will, just to provide some more context. So the value of the property overall was assessed at $335,300 in 2021, and the assessment for this year is $319,300. And then the third thing, the last thing, this is more just kind of a clarification point or something to note. In the board of director, the BOE memo file, it states in the appraiser comments that comparable units all had ratios over 1. And the comparable units that are listed, they do have the same exact square footage at 627 square feet. But 2 out of 3 of those units were assessed in July 2021, which is 9 months after I purchased, and the market has changed frequently, even from October 2020 when I purchased to July 2021. And when you look at the BOE analysis packet on page 4, that was actually used to conduct the assessment and determine the value. And one in particular, so unit 604, which is actually smaller than my unit, so it's at 623 square feet. That sold, and that also sold just a few days after mine, so on October 28th for $377,000. So the ratio is 0.889. So overall, the actual analysis to conduct the assessment, where we're mentioning that there are comparable units, it also included units similar to mine that weren't exactly the same square footage. So that's something else that I wanted to point out as well. And the reason why I point this out is that the memo argues that my unit was assessed against comparable units, which all have a ratio over 1, but there were other units that were sold around the time in the market with similar ratios. So those are the 3 things that I'd like to discuss here or present. So why is the land value being assessed commercially when I have a residential condo? And then overall, seeing that the overall assessment value is decreasing, even though there were significant improvements to the building in the year 2021. And then that piece on the memo mentioning that all comparable units had a ratio over 1, even though there were other units included in the BOE analysis packet that had ratios similar to mine. That's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we hear from Mr. Carvajal, Mr. Who is it? Flournoy, who's the next case. Can you turn your camera off, please?
I'm sorry, what were you asking, to turn my camera off?
Turn your camera off, because
Off.
this is not your case and it's distracting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Carvajal.
Sure. The subject is unit 805 at the Woodbury Heights condo here in Courthouse. It is 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 627 square feet. I'd like to go a little bit over the analysis. We had a pretty good turnover at Woodbury Heights during our sales analysis period. We saw 17 sales of the 170 units, so roughly 10% turnover in that time. The analysis showed us a clear trend. Market values were decreasing, so we made the appropriate change. And 1 bedroom units saw a negative 6% adjustment to their improvement base values, and 2 bedroom units saw a negative 7% change to their base values. The concern that the appellant brings about the land was something that we heard about last year. Over the past 2 years, we've been working on updating residential condo land values that had not seen movement in nearly a decade. As market value increases, some of that value is attributed to the land and some to the improvement. Condo land is not as tangible as a single family dwelling lot, but there is a value to the desirability of a geographic location or the amenities and services provided by a particular condo building. This is what we try to capture with this land value. The appellant asked us to show what changes had occurred to other buildings in the area And if I can call your attention to page 19 of 33 of the packet, this is a internal chart that was shared with the appellant, which shows changes to land value in the courthouse area. The chart shows residential condos in the courthouse area, and as you can see in the column, third from the left, land values were not equalized from building to building in 2019. Where there might have been a mix-up, a misunderstanding, so to say, with the appellant, was that we used commercial guidelines of apartment land as a starting point and calculated new per square foot land rates for different types of residential condos, as seen in the smaller chart towards the bottom of the page. Each condo had its land value adjusted to the new equalized land rate, and the result averaged around 100% increase in land value for most buildings. Again, land value increases for condos are just a reallocation of the value already there. So if the land increased 60,000, for example, the improvement should also decrease 60,000 if there was no change in market value from one year to the next. A little over half the residential condo neighborhoods in Arlington saw this change for 2021, and the other half saw this update in this year's assessment. Woodbury Heights was one that saw the change this year. Comparable sales were also provided for your convenience on page 3 of the packet, but I would consider more that the subject sold in October 2020 for $378,000, and we currently have it assessed at $319,300. Thank you.
Okay, questions from board members?
No.
Mr. Metzgen.
For the appellant, do you look out into I forget what it's called, I think Hilton Garden Motel out on Courthouse Road from your front window? Or are you above it?
Yes, it's directly in front of me.
Right in front of you. Okay. For the department on that, and then I have a follow-up question. The floor, you have a floor value. We see this all the time, is go higher, they're worth a little bit more. Is that why, even though it's on the 8th floor, it has 0 floor value, meaning that everything from 8 and below is 0?
Not necessarily. So we are aware of the units that have the obstructed view by the Hilton. And if you actually look on the comp sheet on page 3, comparable 1 and 2 have a $20,000 other feature. That $20,000 is applied to units in tiers that on the west side of the building that are over the Hilton. So if you can see over the Hilton, you have that $20,000 premium
Okay, that
added
was
on
my
to the
second
assessment.
question. Okay, thank you. Great.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, Mr. Carvajal, if you take a minute to wrap up.
Sure, thank you. The department has no new information to add. We just ask that you please consider the subject sales price and the analysis provided. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. and Pat, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Sure. I think my main point here is that the overall building value seems to have decreased and the land value has increased. And if you look at my over sales price in comparison to some of the other units, including the one that I mentioned that sold for $377 on October 28th, and another unit that sold for $375 on August 24th of 2020. Those 2 units were sold at a higher price, and I think overall that, in addition to the building improvements, should warrant that the overall assessment value should be higher. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's just among the board members. What do folks think? It's rare that we get a request for a higher value or a higher assessment.
Mary?
Mr. Hoffman, yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's the good thing is there's tons of data in the building. The department doesn't have to go out and look down the street and try to compare views and stuff. So, I mean, 17 sales in the analysis period, I think they've got a lot to draw on, and it looks all right to me.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Penaranda?
Yeah, I'm obviously okay with the assessment the way it is, but one thing that I wanted to remind the appellant is that not necessarily the assessment value is going to determine the market value. So, you know, whenever she's ready to sell or to do whatever she, would like to do with it is not going to affect what the market value of the property will be, because it will be based on comparable sales anyway. So, like you said, normally we don't get a request for an increase, but based on all the information, I'm okay with it.
Okay, good point. All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll motion
Okay,
to confirm the department's assessment at 319,300.
okay, we have a motion. I'll second it. All in favor of confirming the county?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. It's unanimous. The county's confirmed at the 319,300. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Flournoy, you can turn your camera back on again.
Okay, sorry about
I'll
that.
get no problem. The next case on the agenda is RPC 20012-136 at 4141 Henderson Road. And Mr. Flournoy?
Flournoy.
Flournoy. Okay, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about your property, sir.
Okay, my basic case is that in a building that's 50 years old, there's a wide variety of conditions within the building. I think your effort to amalgamate units and compare them across the board as equal is fine for a building that's more recently built, but a building that's 50 years old that has a wide variety of conditioned units inside the building demand more higher level of scrutiny for assessment of the real estate value. The units that have been compared to mine, at least one of them I know has been fully renovated and gutted and renovated. And that's what some people are doing when they buy new units in the building, and it's driving up real estate prices for renovated units. But for older units, and I pointed out to unit 419, which I know was sold after the assessment year, but you are allowed to take trends into account. 419 sold for less than what was assessed, actually. 419, I think it sold for, well, now I don't have it right in front of me, but I can pull it up. It's probably in your records. Sold for less than what it was assessed at. And then the other point I want to make out is that the view sheds are very radically different in this building. If you face Glebe Road, Henderson Road, and Thomas Street, particularly on the higher units, you have a very clear unobstructed view for quite some distance. And that's due to the low-lying nature of the real estate in Buckingham, in the Buckingham neighborhood. However, if you're on the back of the building, which is where my unit is, we've been facing a parking lot for many years. The Harris Teeter is now being redeveloped, and now we have a construction site underway for 7 years, or 6 years, I guess. It's going to be 6 years of construction, and then there'll be 3 new towers built very close to the building, which are going to be a future detriment to our view and light and air. But in the meanwhile, before that even happens, we're going to be in a construction zone for 6 years, which I think has been detrimental to sales in the building. Right now, we have very few sales in the building. I think the 3 that are thrown back at me repeatedly are the 3 that are on the on the south side of the building that are, at least one's recently renovated. There are no sales in the back except for 419, which occurred after the end of the assessment year. But again, pointing out again, you can take trends into account. So I think that reflects the fact that there is going to be some disparity in the building between one side and the other side that I don't think is being taken into account in determining the assessed values of the units. Now, let me address one other point. I'm in a unit that's slightly larger than some of the other units that are being assessed. In fact, the fully renovated unit is being assessed at a lower value than my unit, which is not fully renovated. But I do own a unit 1023, which is comparable in size to 1024. It's right across the hallway, in fact, and opposite hand floor plan. And while we may have about 200 square feet more in the 11th tier, which I'm in, as opposed to the 23 tier in terms of square footage, most of that square footage is tied up in non-livable space, hallway space, a slightly larger foyer. I think there's one additional closet, And the only significant difference, in my opinion, the reason I bought this unit was the kitchens are slightly larger. You can actually have an eat-in kitchen in 511 and in the 23 and 24 tiers, you cannot do that. Now, when they renovated the 24 tier, or the 1024 was renovated, I think they put in like an eating bar or something like that. But if you haven't fully renovated, you have a kitchen that's very small and you can't eat in it. 11 tier, I can have a table in the kitchen and I can eat in it. So the most that additional living space is additional 70 square feet in the kitchen, but the rest of it is longer hallways, slightly larger foyer, and I think there's one additional closet. But the bedrooms are the same size, living room the same size, dining room is the same size. And I know that because I've lived in both units. So I'm open to any questions. I try to hit all the high points in I sent you a kind of a rather long narrative, and I apologize, but I'm certainly open to answering any questions you might have about that.
Okay, thank you. Carvajal for the county.
Sure. The subject is Unit 511 at Hyde Park, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms located on the 5th floor. It is 1,702 square feet, and per the owner, the unit is in near original condition. No changes were made to the property record following the departmental review. Over the past 2 analysis periods, we've been tracking construction at the Harris Teeter site to see if it had an effect on market value, and no change was observed last year, and no change was observed this year as well. 12 valid open market sales took place in the analysis period. We saw everything from efficiencies to 3-bedroom sell, fully renovated, as well as slightly updated units, as well as units facing north, east, south, and west. A great data set as far as an analysis is concerned. All sales had assessments lower than their sale price, with a tight grouping of assessment to sale ratios in most units, but a larger range in assessment to sale ratios for efficiency units. Direction the unit faced, or whether it was slightly renovated or fully renovated, had no quantifiable difference in market value. The change for 2022 was a 12% increase for efficiency units, and a 2% increase for 1-bedroom units, and 8 and 10% increase for 2 and 3-bedroom units, respectively. These changes brought the median assessment to sale ratio for the neighborhood to 94. There was one sale of a renovated unit, 1024, that sold significantly higher than its assessment, but this was one of the 12 sales. Other fully renovated units did not see such a premium value paid between renovated and slightly renovated units of comparable size. There were no sales of the subject's model, but a grouping of 3 1,400 square foot units occurred. These are provided in the comp sheet. Units 1024, 423, and 323 are all roughly 300 square feet smaller than the subject. If you refer to page 3 of the packet, we can go through them now. Comp 1, 1024, was the sale that stood out in the analysis as the outlier. Comp 2 and Comp 3 are better representations of what we typically see at Hyde Park. Comp 2, Unit 423, has a renovated kitchen, but original 1970s bathrooms. Comp 3 has a renovated kitchen, renovated bathrooms, and updated flooring. Comp 2 and 3 show the differences we typically see in market value between renovated and slightly updated units at Hyde Park. This is also apparent in the 1-bedroom and efficiency units as well. Another sale not shown in the comp sheet but provided for review in the analysis in the BOE packet was Unit 1010. This sale might provide some more context to market value in Hyde Park. Although this unit is superior to the subject in that it has 1 additional bedroom, it has the same amount of bathrooms and the square footage is a little closer to the subject, having a difference of only 120 square feet. Unit 1010 is renovated from its original 1973 condition, and it sold in the analysis period for $659,000. The department will keep an eye out and continue to track the construction project near Hyde Park, and we will make changes to our assessments if we are able to quantify the market value differences in units that face the construction, and so far we have not seen these data points. Due to the evidence reviewed and the analysis observed, the department asked that the board confirm the department's assessment of $563,800, which can be considered fair when looking at the sales that occurred in the 2022 analysis period, and can be confirmed as equitable when comparing it to other units in the building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? No? Mr. Hoffman? Oh, Mr. Matzkin.
Excuse me, question for the department. Excuse me. The 11 tier, because is the 11 tier equalized and adjusted for floor value? Because everything else is the same? Or at least the 11 tier above, maybe it changes at certain floor. I thought I heard the appellant say that.
It is equalized. The only difference is there's a floor adjustment. The higher you go up, the larger the floor adjustment.
And that's it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, Mr. Carvajal, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Sure. The department has no new information to add. Several residents have brought up the point of the construction at the Harris Teeter site. We are keeping an eye on it, as we do with any other construction project in Arlington. If we see data points on that construction site that are showing us that their market value is significantly reduced, we will definitely make the changes. We don't necessarily pinpoint what's causing that, but we will make a note of it during a construction site as something we should keep an eye on. But the department asks that the board please confirm the current assessment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Flournoy, if you take a minute to wrap up, sir.
Well, he brought a lot of new data to the table, which when I filed my first appeal, they did not respond with any of that information. So it's hard for me to address his argument at this point because it wasn't made earlier in my appeal before I came to the Board of Equalization. So I still think there are no sales in the back of the building that are comparable to this unit. And the one sale, which he didn't address, 419, actually sold for less than what is being assessed. The value is being assessed at, and that is the only one that's on the back of the building. It's a 2-bedroom, slightly faces Glebe Road, and is the one I would point out as being somewhat comparable, but a lower sold for less than what's being assessed.
Okay, it's just among the board members then. What's everybody think? Mr. Hoffman?
I was going to defer to my condo experts on the board, but I mean, for as far as I can see, my concern is also with the views if they end up being obstructed, that as construction progresses, depending on how the build goes on that property and what they put in, we definitely need to be tracking that there's a difference in views from the different directions on the building versus the height. So that I think that's more a to-do going forward and continue to track.
Just curious, how high is the building? How high is the construction going? I didn't see anything related to that.
I think only the board members know.
Yeah, I don't think that phase has started going up yet. I think they're doing the first phase on the other side of the Harris Teeter, and then once that grocery store is open, then they'll break ground on the rest of it. So I'm sorry, I didn't answer your question.
It's down the road, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and we'll have sales in the meantime to address that.
Right. I did try to look at square footages and floor adjustments and things, and just see what I could on the renovations of other units. I don't see the county's not that far off. I think they've given good justification for their numbers. Mm-hmm. It's the way I came out.
Right, there's Mr. Penaranda.
Yeah, I agree with both the statements. I don't think that we can see any effect right now on what the new construction is going to have. And, from the experience that we had from other Harris Teeters, the one on George Mason in Alexandria and Falls Church on Broad Street, I don't think the buildings are going to be much higher than most of those projects. So, I don't think the view is necessarily going to be affected immensely. So I'm okay with the assessment.
Okay. All right, would somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move that we confirm the assessment at 563,800.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Metzgen, second, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The county is confirmed at 563,800. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Mary, before we continue, I may have to step away for the last two cases because I have to go out before 10:30. Unfortunately, I have to other commitments to attend.
Okay. My apologies on that. Okay, so Jose will not be on this case then, because you won't hear the whole case or the final case.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you. I'll take
All
notes
right.
for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
and do we have Mr. Levi?
I see a phone number, but I'm not sure if that's him or not. 949.
All
Hi,
right, well,
the ninth number is Rania Elias. I'm not actually sure what time I'm supposed to be on the agenda, so that's why I just called in.
okay, you're the next case after this one.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Okay, so the next case on the agenda is RPC 35007-039 at 1200 South Arlington Ridge Road. And I do not believe Mr. Levi is on the call. So we will hear from Ms. Telleria Boutier.
Thank
for the
you.
county.
Good morning. Can I start? Good morning, everyone. So the subject is Unit 406 at the Cavendish Condominium, which was built in 1958. It is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 956 square foot unit. Although an inspection was not conducted, I did review the last listing pictures, which show renovations in both the kitchen and bathroom and fully carpeted flooring. The appellant believes that the land is too high, the land value. As you may have noticed, there was an increase in value for the subject's land. Land increases occurred at approximately 95% of condominiums in Arlington County over the 2021 and 2022 assessment periods. The land value increased as part of a reallocation of values between land and improvement. Land values have been stagnant in over a decade. While the appellant's land value increased from $38,600 to $84,000, the improvement value decreased from $279,600 to $213,600. The total assessment for the subject also decreased from its 2021 assessment. The total value went down from $318,200 in 2021 to $297,600 in 2022. The decrease in total assessment was derived from the market analysis. The subject's neighborhood experienced overall high ratios during our analysis period. Some of those sales that were observed were Unit 608, which is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 785 square foot unit, which sold in March of 2021 for $250,000. This unit included full hardwood flooring, renovations in the kitchen, and modern updates in the bathroom. Unit 703, a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 735 square foot unit sold in March of 2021 for $240,000. This unit also included refinished hardwood flooring. The bathroom has an older style and the kitchen displayed older cabinets, counters, and appliances. Unit 412, a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 716 square foot unit sold in April of 2021 for $250,000. This unit includes modern renovations throughout the entire unit. Unfortunately, there were no 2-bedroom sales during the analysis period, but 8 out of the 9 sales had high ratios. A reduction was applied to both 1- and 2-bedroom units. The reductions that were applied ranged between 8 to 14%. This reduction brought the overall median ratio down from 1.069 to 0.97. After the analysis period, there have been a few 2-bedroom late sales, one of which was Unit 702. This unit is in very similar condition to the subject and it sold for $295,000. The subject last sold in June of 2019 for $330,000 and is currently assessed at less than its sales price. As a result of the review and the information submitted, I ask that the board please confirm the 2022 assessment at $297,600. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from any of the board members?
No.
Okay, is there any other comments that you need to tell us?
No, once again, I'd just like to reiterate that the subject was not singled out. All of the units at the Cavendish received the same land rate increase, and it was simply a reallocation of value. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think your last statement kind of hit the nail right on the head. I mean, it's just reallocating and bringing the land in line. So I don't have a problem with the assessment. I mean, especially as it decreased as well. So anybody else?
No.
Mr. Metzgen?
Just wanted to quickly note for the second condominium assessment in a row and very different condominiums, renovations don't seem to make a big difference in sales on the limited amount of sales that we have during any assessment period. That's something that we ought to continue to look out for as we go through the this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any final? No?
Yeah.
All right, I will move to confirm the county. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Motion and a second by Mr. Hoffman. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it's 4-0. The county is confirmed at 297,600. All right, and the last case on the agenda here is RPC 34027-415 at 3650 South Glebe Road. And Miss Rania?
Yep.
Yep.
Hi there.
Okay, so you can start. Do you have a camera or are you just audio?
Sorry, I'm only audio.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, you can start with your
Okay.
8 minutes and tell us about your property.
Thank you. My name is Rania Elias, and I appreciate all of you hearing my appeal. I purchased a condo in the Eclipse building in December for $550,000. This was my very first home purchase. And at that time, the condo had been on the market for about 3 months when I bought it. And I did not know the sellers. So I was not able to influence their decision to sell it to me. The Eclipse building was built in 2007, and there is wide variation in the quality of the units, I guess, and how much they've been improved or upgraded. The unit I purchased is 958 square feet and has not been upgraded, and it does come with 1 parking spot. The assessed value that I received is $562,900. And I actually believe that number should be closer to $525,000. I did receive a letter from the Department of Real Estate Assessments with 3 sales that took place between April and August of 2021. And then I received another letter with information that the Department of Real Estate Assessments provided to the board. And I appreciate you all providing this information. I'm no real estate expert, but from what I could tell, the appraiser had valued the parking spaces at $25,000, the view at $25,000, and each floor above ground level at $5,000. My unit faces Potomac Avenue, so it isn't really clear to me how the view is valued at $25,000 because it does come with a pretty big trade-off actually. The train tracks are located right outside the building. So there's constant freight train noise, and this is even throughout the night. And I do think this is one of the reasons why the condo had been sitting on the market because of the constant train noise. But the 3 comparable sales that were provided, first one was sold on April 16th. Unit 238 was sold for $595,000, and the assessed value is $531,100, which is about $494 per square foot. This is a unit that is 2 floors below mine, but it is also a corner unit and larger than my unit. On May 18th, unit 639 was sold for for $580,000, and the assessed value is $583,200, which equates to a price per square foot of $519. This unit is 2 floors higher, which the appraiser values at $10,000, and does come with an additional parking spot, which is valued at $25,000. So adjusting these values for my unit, it would be $548,200. But this unit is also 165 square foot larger than my unit and has upgrades that my unit does not, specifically the kitchen, and it also has hardwood floors throughout. So it seems like a further downward adjustment would be warranted for that. On August 20th, Unit 652 was sold for $590,000, and the assessed value is $572,900. It seems like the only thing that was adjusted for is it being 2 floors above mine, which brought it down $10,000. But this unit was upgraded throughout. Specifically, the kitchen had been upgraded with cabinets and counters, and they do have bamboo flooring and new carpet. It seems like there was no adjustment for the fact that my unit had not been upgraded. So when I look at the 3 comparable sales, the average price per square foot is $537, which equates to a value for my unit of $514,446. And I don't know how this impacts values at all, but recently the association did increase our assessment. Starting January 1st, the dues went up 17%. So now it's at $665 for a 2-bedroom unit. And I will say, when I was looking for a condo, the higher the condo dues, the less appealing it was to me. So I do believe that the increase in HOA dues does decrease the attractiveness of the building, especially since we're not getting any new amenities or improvements to our existing amenities. And I guess, that will remain to be seen for this coming year. But I will say, when they increased the dues, it was too late for me to back out of the deal because I had already committed to buying the place. So I guess to conclude, based on the very recent sales price, the condition of the property, and the recent HOA increases, I do believe that the assessed value of my home should be closer to $525,000. That kind of summarizes, I guess, concludes what I have, but would be happy to answer any questions, and thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. And now for the county.
Thank you. So I want to start out by just pointing out that, unfortunately, the comp sheet that you see in your BOE memo folder was not the finalized version. So Mr. Carvajal will actually be sharing the final version of the comp sheet, just so you can see some floor and view values that were not listed previously. So the subject is Unit 453 at the Eclipse on Center Park condominium. It's located on the 4th floor and is east side facing. It has 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 958 square feet. The unit includes 1 parking space and 1 storage unit. Again, and although no interior inspection was conducted, I did review the listing photos since it did sell recently, and it showed a fully original unit, mixture of hardwood and carpeting, and the unit also includes panoramic views of the Potomac River since it is right above the tree line. As she said, the appellant feels that the fair market value of the condo should be $525 due to not being upgraded and the high HOA fees. She recently did purchase the unit in December of 2021 for $550,000. The appellant's neighborhood decreased 2% for studios and 1-bedroom units, and there was an 8% decrease for 2- and 3-bedroom units during the 2022 analysis. Some of the sales that we saw at the Eclipse included Unit 652, which sold for $590,000. This unit is the exact same model as the subject. This unit also includes a similar view. The bathroom is in original condition and the kitchen has minor differences. Unit 238 sold for $595,000 in April of 2021. This unit is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,074 square foot unit. It's also east side facing and on the 2nd floor. The kitchen and bathrooms appear to be in original condition, and the unit is fully carpeted. And unit 639 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,123 square foot east side facing unit that sold for $580,000 in May of 2021. The unit is in original condition, but does include updated hardwood flooring throughout. All of the comps presented appear to be close to original condition. There were 11 original unit sales during the analysis, and there was no quantifiable evidence to account for changes in the units that had minor updates. And that is because the Eclipse is the largest and newest condo in the Crystal City area. It was built in 2006, and the majority of original units still look excellent. As far as condo fees increasing or being too high, we acknowledge that they can change at any moment in time and have no direct correlation to the county's assessment. Once we see how those high HOA fees have affected market value, then we can go ahead and use the larger pool of data to see if there was a change. Since the subject sold in December of 2021 for $550,000, the sale will be used for the 2023 assessment. It is currently equalized with other units at the Eclipse, and as a result of the review, we ask that the board please confirm the 2022 assessment at $562,900. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Mr. Hoffman, I can't see you. No question?
Yeah,
No?
I've got one question.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Did you say that the 2022 analysis, it was 2 and 3 bedroom units are down 8% or?
Yeah.
Up 8%.
Down 8%.
Okay. That was it.
Okay, Mr. Metzgen?
I have a question for the department about noise. Trains don't go by as often as trucks on some major thoroughfares, but they are loud. Have you found any difference on one side of the building versus the other that would account for a noise factor diminishing that side? And maybe the answer is it's offset by the wonderful view of the Potomac and airplanes and the sewage plant in Maryland. Do you see any difference on that side?
There has been no quantifiable difference in noise level. It is Crystal City, which is very urban out there and very popular recently. So just nothing that would be specific to the train noise that was mentioned.
No.
Okay, any other questions? No. Okay, Ms. Telleria Boutier, if you can take a minute to wrap up.
The county has no new information to add. Just as I mentioned before, the building is fairly new. We haven't seen any major differences in levels of renovation. Everything still holds up pretty well. So just hope that you guys can see that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Elias, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the noise actually is kind of a big deal. It is constant. It isn't just trucks because there is some construction going on, but it is also train noise, metro, VRE, and freight trains. So the west side of the building is significantly quieter. And then I guess in terms of renovation, I mean, if all else was equal and the values are the same, I would have opted for a more renovated unit. And I don't think that my unit should be, when I look at the price per square foot, it doesn't seem right that my unit would be on the high end of that. And I appreciate you all considering this appeal and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's just among the board members. What's the thought? Go ahead, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean, the two kind of things that jumped out to me is obviously the sale price at $550 right up against the end of the year. And the fact when you calculate that, it's about an 8% reduction from the 2021 assessment. And that's what the county's saying, 2 and 3 bedrooms are down 8% year over year. So it seems like the sale price would be in line with that analysis. But then you've got these comps 2 and 3, which, trying to figure out, do they have the same views? Do they have the same train? That makes it a little bit more difficult.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Unlike the first case when it was a single family, there are other sales in the building so I'm struggling a little bit with that.
Yeah.
As far as I think the county certainly addressed the increase of the HOA. I think we see that across the board from a lot of different properties. And I think we're going to see that in the next year or so on a lot of properties. And the market values will determine whether or not those increases affect what. So I don't put much weight on that, but Mr. Yates or Mr. Matzkin, what do you think? Go ahead, Mr. Yates.
The unit, the improvement went down, but there's a $25,000 bump in the land, and I think that did the offset. Now I don't know if the others. I did not look the others up to see if they had the same kind of bump, but I assume they did. It seems to be a theme with the condos. It does seem a little bit out of line, but not that far. And I don't know, that was one of my questions was going to be to the county. Was there any adjustment for rail? And the answer is really no. It doesn't sound like they do any. But I could see that being a deterrent if you're buying there, maybe on the other side of the building or somewhere. But
right, but the rail was there.
Yeah.
And these units are selling. So I'm not as sympathetic to that issue until I saw a drop in market prices, of resale. So.
Well, and the fact the price of the unit compared to the assessment, that's upside down. That's just, we don't see that. We don't see that.
I agree with both of you. My prejudice is that rail's going to matter, but guess what? Nobody seems to care so far in this building. Could be again on the Glebe Road side. You're getting Route 1 noise. And so, as the department said, it's an urban place and you're going to get noise, and just pick your poison. At least on the appellant side, at least you get a good view of the river and some cool plain stuff.
Which is the appeal to that property.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And maybe in first blush, the sales price and the assessment are upside down, but the sales price was outside the assessment period. Maybe it'll be right side up next year. And finally, like some of the other appellants we've had today, and I say this with a smile, the appellant's a victim of adjusted land prices, especially in National Landing, where all things are Amazon. The improvement value plummeted, and that seems, knowing that this is somewhat of an artifice, land versus improvement value, nonetheless, the department has adjusted for catching up on the land value. So I really don't have a problem with it.
Right.
All right. In comparison, and just, not that it's all the same, but we did look at that purchase price in one of the prior cases compared to the current assessment.
Right. I did address that, Mark. My feeling was that was a single family home. When you look, there are sales in this building. So I think that's a difference for my standpoint anyway, as far as to look at. I think just what you said, with the reallocation, and that's really what they've done. They've gone and changed some of the value to the land where it should be. And I think they're doing that across the county. I think we've seen that on other condos, buildings here. I suspect if we have more cases, we're going to see more of that, you know, and the building itself, the unit itself went down. So, you know, I don't feel like the land went up. I think they're just reallocating where the assessment is. But the fact that we do have other sales in this building, I tend to be okay with where the assessment is. And if this year there's other lower ones, then I think then the sale price of this unit will in fact impact for next year.
Oh, that is my one real hang up is the upside down, which you just don't see. Yeah, I don't know if she, I don't know, got a good price. I don't know the way it seems to stack up with the comps.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Metzger.
I mean, we're on the subject. We have a little time. You know, maybe the appellant's on the leading edge of what's happening in this building. Again, it's outside the assessment period on the current side. It'd be interesting to see what happens right now when the department goes back. But we do, I mean, we see ratios, forgetting about in and out of the assessment period, we see ratios above 1. The department's goal is to keep them all under 1, but I mean, this is a big building and the sales are the sales. Right. You know, if this were 2 or something, I go, whoa, wait a minute, something screwy, but it's not that far out of whack. We do see it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
All right, well, then I will go ahead and move to confirm the county at 562,900. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second by Mr. Metzger. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Greg, I can't see you. Were you
I was in
supported?
favor.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, it's unanimous then. The county is confirmed at 562,900. Thank you. Okay, does anybody, the county or any board members have any other additional business?
On that first case, Mary, if you could
Oh, yes,
clarify.
yes, yes. Here you go. All right, thank you, Rick, for bringing that up. Okay, so the new value on the land will be 736 and the building at 94, which brings it in at 830.
And that's for Rose's benefit to be able to.
Oh yeah, no, that's, thank you for reminding me. I would have had to email her after. Okay, no other business?
Yeah, I think we have I have the folder and I have the packets and everything, but I don't think we have an invite for tomorrow's meeting. Maybe I wasn't on it, but I don't have the link.
Okay, that if you look on your agenda, if you open and print the agenda, it's on the agenda also.
Okay. All right, so I can
I
just
will
go
resend, but I did send to you and everybody, but I can resend it to you.
Yeah, resend it just to be sure.
Good.
And then tomorrow we have quite a few cases, but some of them are very similar. If you started to read them, you'll see. Yeah. So I think we'll move along in a timely manner. Okay, well, with that being said and no further business, then we will stand adjourned here at 10:49 and re-adjourn tomorrow morning, Wednesday, May 25th at 9 a.m. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, board members.